Hello, this is Demon Phoenix with part 3 of my hardcore walkthrough, this time for chapters 10 to 12 for Dead Space 2. Starting off on the Ishimura, before you fight any enemies you'll be able to get to a bench and you'll be able to put some of the resources that you've got to good use. I start upgrading the rest of the contact beam like its primary fire and its capacity upgrades, because the contact beam is an amazing weapon. You also finish off the Javelin Gun upgrades, and if you've got the last damage upgrade to get on the Ripper then you can get that as well. Before anything else though, I would prioritise getting these 6 nodes to get to the next HP. And then you can upgrade your health for the last parts of the game, as it can be quite tricky. And also if you can start upgrading your stasis after that, those are what we focus on, the upgrades. So the health first, and then starting on the contact beam, finishing off the Javelin Gun. Most of this part of the walkthrough is mainly going to be tactics, because we've got the weapon set as I like it now, and whatever weapon set you have you should be comfortable with it and never have really more than 3 weapons. This corridor in the Ishimura can be quite difficult. The enemies can always spawn the same enemies, but depending on where you are they can sometimes come in at different spawn points. So if you're heading to the left here, you can get a node from the same place that you get a node in Dead Space 1 actually, but yeah, just be mindful that there's a fair few enemies to go through to get to it. Both go in there's a black necro and a pregnant, and this is how you take out the pregnant with the Ripper. Just take the arms and keep it high so it doesn't spawn the pregnants from its belly. And then on the way back you've got a couple of enemies to take as well. Because the Ripper damage is so highly upgraded, if anything comes close to you, you can normally kill multiple enemies with one saw like there, but there is a black puker as well, so don't be afraid to use your stasis either for this corridor. If you've got your stasis charges upgraded to 4, there is a stasis machine at the end in the large room where you have to do the puzzle, so you've got at least 4 shots of stasis, and that's without even considering using any stasis packs. On the way back there's a couple of enemies, and you can see here I'm just going to show what happened to me on this particular playthrough, which won't normally happen, so you have to watch out for it. As you go around the corner from killing these 2 enemies, there's normally a pregnant right there. And the pregnant hasn't spawned for whatever reason, so you have to be careful when you're doing this next section, because as you come around the corner and start taking out these enemies, it will sometimes spawn behind you, and that's what hits me here. If you get touched then you should normally heal, as I've said before on the previous hardcore walkthroughs. I was actually saving the node there to be able to use it to upgrade my health, which will fill your HP, but that's a bit of an extreme play, so probably don't do that. This room here you have a bunch of the pack jumping through from each side of the windows, so take those out with the Ripper if you have it, or whatever fast firing weapon that you can. They come from both sides, so be careful of that. And then there are 2 black necros and a black puker that spawn, so be careful with them. Either use the Javelin Gun and stasis, or possibly the contact beam to take those out, because that can be quite a dangerous room. As you move on you get the advanced suit, which is absolutely brilliant. It costs 36,000 credits if you've got the vintage suit equipped, or 40,000 if not. So make sure you save up for that as you come through chapter 10 and 11. Now this room is this lift can be extremely dangerous, and this is part of the reason why I recommended upgrading the contact beam secondary fire. It's a very enclosed space and necros drop down 2 at a time. You can take them out of the Ripper depending on your set, but much easier is to just keep an extra stack of contact beam ammo and to just destroy everything as it comes down. Now the contact beam is probably going to be the main weapon for most of the rest of your playthrough, as long as you have the inventory space for it. The Ripper takes out things at close range. The Javelin Gun is just your standard for medium and long range enemies, but whenever you have contact beam ammo it can serve to absolutely decimate anything in its path. So that's what we're going to do here, and this is how you can use the contact beam and its secondary for the rest of the playthrough whenever you have the ammo for it. When the black necros drop down they sometimes take 2 shots, but if your primary's upgraded then the charge will be quicker anyway. After you finish this lift sequence you'll be getting to a bench here before the drill ride. There is also a diamond semiconductor and a node to pick up in the next big room, and you can come back to this bench at any point before you start the actual drill ride sequence itself. So here you can see we've got the Ripper effectively maxed because we don't need the alts or the capacity on it. We've got full rig and full stasis for HP, duration and the stasis shots, and you can see the Ripper's effectively maxed there because all you really need is the damage and duration for the Ripper, so you don't have to worry about anything else. The Javelin Gun is maxed, and like I say, that's going to be our standard, and the contact beam is maxed as well. So at this point any extra nodes you get, you just don't have to worry about using those. You can just put them into your kinesis or anything like that. The drill ride is extremely dangerous. It's always going to be a difficult part of the game to do. You can use the Ripper to take stuff out. I tend to stay at this bit because I just don't like being close to the actual rotating saw blades, because if you back up into those you will die and you will lose your progress back to wherever your last save was. The actual safest way of doing the drill sequence is not to use your normal weapons at all, but to use the contact beam. Again, if you have the ammo for it and you've been saving up the stacks, then it's by far the best weapon to use. It just has so much damage on the secondary fire, and the primary fire, when you've upgraded the charge and the reload, is just as effective or more effective sometimes than the Javelin Gun, and it's just a fantastic weapon overall, which is why I always prioritise getting the contact beam for the later chapters. For these parts you want to pick up the explosives. The problem can be is with the lurkers, the babies that fire at you, is they will normally miss you if you stand still because the drill's actually moving, but sometimes you can get unlucky and they will hit you, and because of the damage that you're taking, you do want to be careful when you're doing this bit. Again, same old rules for hardcore. If you take a scratch, just heal. Make sure you have plenty of health packs before you do this part. So there, as soon as you get damaged, just make sure that you quick heal and just mark it up again. Again, if you have the enough stacks of the contact beam, you can focus on using the contact usually, and that is just as effective or even more effective than most of the weapons. Don't worry about how much resources you use. You see there, I've got plenty of health packs. I bought a lot of spears and a couple of stacks of the contact beam as well. I'm a very conservative player, so you can see here that I try and take this one out with the primary even when it's not necessary, and the blood from the puker hits me when you should just use the secondary for the contact and wipe out everything in your path. It'll knock the enemies off the side as well, and it's just a really good tool for getting through this very dangerous part of the game. So again, heal if you get scratched, and try and blow everything off the side with the contact beam secondary fire. This particular part, after Ellie leaves, is also an extremely dangerous room. There's a lot of different types of enemies. You've got exploders and black necros and a couple of pukers, and there are also black lurkers, the babies, which are very difficult to see. There is actually one there next to the regular lurker that I just shot, but it's so difficult to see that it's a bit difficult. You can turn your brightness up if you're struggling, and you're not averse to doing that. So be very careful when the black lurkers appear. If you can hear them, the sound's actually a little bit out of sync on this, and the sound stopped on the upload studio, unfortunately. But you can see the black lurker just crawling up there, and I don't pay attention to it because of the black necro that's right in my face, and then it hits me and they do a lot of damage. So this is why we try and have health upgraded before you get to these bits in chapter 12 and 13. So if you take any damage, just making sure that you quick heal, watch for the black necros and the black lurkers, and either use the Javelin Gun or the contact beam to take them out, and just make sure that you're just being as careful as possible. After you've completed this room, if you carry on using the Javelin Gun, which I always do, go back down to the store and make sure that you switch to the vintage chute and buy as many spears as you can carry in your inventory. If you're going to carry on using the Javelin Gun as your main weapon, and the reason we've upgraded it to this point is because of how effective it is against all types of necromorphs, make sure that you stock up on spears, because this is the only part of the game where you have to go a really long way between stores. So you can just have a bunch of spears, and like I say, I've got 3 stacks of contact ammo there, and only 1 stack of Ripper ammo. You don't really need a lot of that with the Javelin and the contact taking pretty much everything out. So make sure you've got that, and then switch back to the advanced suit. Most of this chapter is just the same thing, it's just being careful. Just bear in mind the powerful weapons that we've got on this particular setup and the ways that you use them. So don't be afraid to use your stasis. You can always carry a stack of stasis packs as well. The Javelin Gun fires extremely quickly when you've upgraded it. It fires 1 spear every 0.4 seconds, so it is a rapid fire weapon with 100 damage for each shot, so it's extremely effective. Don't be afraid to use stasis if anything gets close, and if anything comes within the range of the Ripper, that'll absolutely mulch them as well. Again, I'm very conservative and I save a lot of my contact beam ammo when it's not really necessary. You can use the contact for a lot of this if you have the ammo for it. Right, and the next save that I make is generally my the last save on hardcore I make on chapter 13, and the last part of the walkthrough is just going to be focusing on that and how we go about it. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.